Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. We are learning more about what went wrong after hospitals in our area were targeted in a major cyber attack, impacting hundreds of thousands of patients. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has our top story.
A cyber attack that caused chaos and uncertainty at several healthcare facilities in our region was properly handled despite some missteps. That's according to an investigation by Ontario's Information and Privacy Commissioner, which looked at the October 2023 attack that targeted Transform Shared Services organization. It's an IT provider for 5 hospitals and a clinic. The cyber attack saw sensitive health information stolen from more than 516,000 people and published on the dark web. And with hospital systems offline for months, a lot of appointments had to be canceled. Some cancer patients even had to move their care elsewhere. Now, the published investigation offers some insight as to how this all happened. The cyber criminals got into the systems through 3 administrative accounts. They don't know how these were hacked, but the investigator says they didn't have multi-factor authentication, which played a role. Multi-factor authentication requires a person to confirm their identity. The organizations have now put this measure in place. Another point of concern was that Blue Water Health in Sarnia had 20,000 social insurance numbers stolen. The investigator says that this shouldn't have happened, that the hospital should not have had this sort of information on patients. As of May 2024, Blue Water Health has stopped collecting SINs and destroyed the ones that they did have. And finally, the investigator says that some people whose information was stolen weren't notified. This was heavily protected information, so the cyber criminals couldn't see it. But the investigator said that they still should have been informed. So even though the investigation confirms that the attack was properly handled, the report did provide 4 recommendations. And those suggest that Transform look at ways to really bolster its security systems, including early detection of attacks just like this one. A cybersecurity expert told me that while it's easy to blame the organization, the government plays a big role in this.
We are not resourcing the Canadian healthcare system to be secure. We need a full public inquiry on the cybersecurity, safety, and resiliency of our healthcare system. And it needs to distill an actual action plan in the relationship between the federal government and the provinces.
The cyber attack was under a criminal investigation. CBC News reached out to the RCMP and Interpol to see where that stands now, but we haven't heard back. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
The city is ordering a review of one of its departments, saying that the team is overstretched. Chris Ensing explains.
Windsor is hiring an outside consultant to do a review of a 3-person department that's responsible for environmental sustainability and climate change. Now, this comes after the people in that department wrote a report that says substantial work is needed to meet Windsor's climate goals. The city says that this review by the consultant will help outline priorities, but climate advocates say that those priorities are already listed in plans created by this department.
I think they're saying they've lost a handle on what's important in terms of actions for the environment and primary actions, secondary actions, and plans.
Derek Coronado leads the Citizens Environment Alliance of Southwestern Ontario. The group says Windsor is stalling climate action.
So bringing in an outside pair of eyes, maybe they're hoping that a fresh perspective will help them somewhat. But I mean, if you look at the actual plans that have been produced over the years, there is a list of the actions and then a tiering or a primary, secondary, what are important actions, what we should work on quickly and what we should set aside for later.
Looking at this department's most recent plan is hard to do. Windsor's updated climate adaptation plan is buried in a 1,000-page document released as part of a package for the new consultant to review.
The report stands out in the sense that it does critique some of the problems that the city's been having with implementing certain actions.
The draft copy calls for decisive, immediate action on the substantial work required to meet goals committed to in the 2020 plan. Some of those recommendations include prioritizing net zero and carbon neutral designs for all new developments in city-owned buildings, expanding air quality monitoring in high traffic areas to help create policies to reduce emissions, and create high-level policies to guide natural area management plans that will help preserve biodiversity in places like the Black Oak Heritage Park. The city is meeting community-wide greenhouse gas reduction targets, but those are trending upward now, and they're no longer tracking toward the city's goal. Councillor Kieran McKenzie says he welcomes the review and agrees the city is not moving aggressively enough on climate change initiatives. He says this review will show how council can resource the department and if it's possible to meet climate change objectives. Chris Hensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Take a look at that. This was the view outside our CBC office around noon. Rain coming down really hard. So is more of that in the forecast? Well, for that, we've got Colette Kennedy joining us. Colette, it was a little scary actually seeing that.
Yeah, for sure. Some heavy downpours there and then a bit of a lull, but there's actually another line of storms headed towards us. They've just been kind of making their way into Michigan, pushing towards the Ohio border. So we do have a severe thunderstorm watch that's in place, meaning conditions favorable for severe storms to develop. And as they come towards us, they should weaken somewhat, so that will help to some extent. But this is the line I'm talking about. All of those blue, it just kind of melds into one, but those are all individual lightning strikes that we're seeing there. Here's this little bit of a reprieve we have right now. And if I put the warnings on that area there in yellow, those are all severe thunderstorm warnings. And right behind it, tornado watches in place. So all associated with this particular line. There are some tornado warnings that have come up associated with it as well. Now, the timeline, it depends if they hold their pattern in terms of how they're moving. Right now, between 80 and 90 kilometers an hour would put it towards Windsor after 8:30, perhaps even later than that if things slow down and weaken further. But know that that is coming, and that's what we'll be dealing with as we push towards midnight, then overnight, dropping to 18 degrees, breezy conditions. Tomorrow afternoon, it will be a little bit cooler, and certainly things will quiet down, but I'll have more details on the heat that's coming when I come back.
As always, thanks for guiding us through it, Colette.
You got it.
Up next, the Public School Board will officially be running a deficit of nearly $1 million for the next school year. The budget was approved last night, and according to local school trustees, the deficit is due to a lack of provincial funding.
Yet again, short-term supply costs for staff absences is costing the boards more than double the amount provided by the province.
Imagine if we said we are not going to backfill for absenteeism. Imagine that. That's $7 million. Parents wouldn't be happy, nor would the province. We are left with very little opportunity to provide for a properly funded education system when we're chronically underfunded.
The budget will mean cuts to about 145 staff positions, as well as the elimination of some French immersion and international baccalaureate programs. After passing the budget by a vote 7-2, the board decided to send another letter to the province requesting more funding. CBC has reached out to a spokesperson for the Minister of Education for comment. A storyteller from Walpole Island First Nation is sharing his memories of the sacred spirit horses. He's made a film and spoke with Jacob Barker to give us a preview.
I remember the spirit horses running through our yard when I was a kid, like something from a dream.
Derek Sands recounts his memories of Ojibwe spirit horses, a memory which led him to create a documentary about them.
I had probably every single emotion making it. Anger, sadness, love, happiness, joy. It's a hard thing to make a film. Like, it's, for me anyways, it's real life.
Sands is a filmmaker and storyteller from Walpole Island First Nation. It was there the horses used to roam free.
This is where they lived. There were no fences here.
He recalls and remembers through stories he heard from his father.
He would tell us stories about how he used to ride the horses to school and just things like that. They were part of the oral histories.
Sands says the spirit horses are considered sacred.
It lived among the people, and they were just like as predominant as the buffalo and the deer. And friends reminded me that Walpole isn't just home to horses. It's home to memory, to teachings passed down through silence.
The animals were once nearly extinct, but now there's an effort to rebuild the population.
If we remembered them, could they remember us?
One place that's happening is at TJ Stables in Chatham, Kent. It's a cause Sands wants to bring attention to.
To just get more recognition for the horses so that people knew about them. So if there's an opportunity for people to help in that revitalization effort for the horses, I think that's good to get that just in the consciousness of people.
But it's also a chance to tell a story about where he is from.
So when I got into filmmaking, I wanted to preserve what was left of our language and the culture and the elders in the stories. There's so many fascinating things about Wapul, and this is just one particular story that no one really knows about. What I found was like it's parallel to the people, like the indigenous people went through residential schools and all these different really hard moments in our history, and so did the horses. So there was a natural parallel connection I seen with the horses and with the people.
The film is part of CBC's Absolutely Canadian series and will be available on CBC Gem this week, coming out on National Indigenous Peoples Day. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
A Walkerville home has had its pride flag stolen not once, but twice, and Windsor police are investigating. A pride flag was first taken from the Moy Avenue home in early May, and then last week, a second pride flag was stolen. Police say an unidentified man approached the front porch, ripped down the pride flag, breaking the flagpole in the process. The president of Windsor Essex Pride Fest says every year around Pride Month, pride flags go missing. And fencing is going up along Sandpoint Beach. Workers could be seen working on the barrier, which is set about 13 meters from the water's edge. The fence is being installed to cut off access to the water. It will eventually run the length of the beach. City Council decided last week to close the beach indefinitely after a 15-year-old boy drowned there last month. There is a plan to relocate Sandpoint Beach east of the current location, but that'll take years and millions of dollars to get across the line. However, some councillors have questioned whether any beach along this stretch of Lake St. Clair would be safe for swimmers. Council is waiting for the coroner's report into the latest drowning before making a final decision on what to do next. And we have an update on the case of the Canadian Olympian turned fugitive. CBC News has learned Ryan Wedding may be linked to a massive cocaine bust in the Toronto area. Thomas Daigle has more on that possible connection to the FBI's most wanted Canadian.
When you see what's here before you today, it's impressive.
Showing off what they describe as nearly $50 million worth of cocaine, Peel Regional Police announced their biggest drug seizure ever. Now a CBC News investigation finds that massive bust,
Ryan Wedding to the line,
may be linked to former Olympic snowboarder turned alleged crime boss Ryan Wedding. One of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives, he's accused of running a murderous drug trafficking network.
The likelihood of what's happening here in Peel being traced back to an organization like that is very high.
What's the likelihood that network's still active in your region?
Very likely.
Whoa. Last fall came a flurry of arrests from this Florida mansion to Colombia and Canada, all in hopes of dismantling Wedding's alleged criminal network. But in court documents we obtained, U.S. prosecutors say Wedding continues to traffic drugs while in hiding.
There certainly are elements of his network that remain in place, but I couldn't say much more than that at this time because of multiple ongoing investigations.
Peel police arrested these men in connection with that record cocaine haul moved across the U.S. border, mirroring the smuggling routes linked to Wedding. His accomplices stand accused of concealing cocaine bricks in secret truck compartments.
Cocaine is not manufactured in Canada. It can only come from outside of Canada, predominantly through the Mexican cartel and coming across the border.
Wedding is believed to be living in Mexico under cartel protection. The U.S. State Department is offering $10 million for information leading to his arrest.
Tips are always coming in.
And sending this message.
Ryan, we're getting tips every day. People are calling in. So you're next, buddy.
Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
When we come back, we will have the very latest on the conflict between Israel and Iran. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israel and Iran continue their air and missile attacks on each other for a 6th day. Iran's supreme leader is rejecting U.S. calls for surrender as Donald Trump says he is weighing his next move. Chris Brown has the latest from Jerusalem.
Even though Israel has continued to attack Iran's nuclear facilities and its other parts of the government, it does feel like the tempo has slowed somewhat of this war as we may be entering what could be a new phase. On the one hand, Israel's military strikes are doing damage, including to a facility that made centrifuges, but the really key part of its nuclear program remains out of reach. That requires U.S. bunker-busting bombs in order to get at. On the other hand, for Iran, it initially fired more than 100 ballistic missiles at Israel for the first few nights of this war, but the tempo has definitely slowed, as have the reports of damage. Iran could be running out of these missiles, could be unable to launch them, or maybe deliberately holding back in case it needs them if the U.S. starts attacking as well. The country's supreme ruler said he would not surrender, answering to Donald Trump, essentially throwing the next big decision in where this conflict goes back to the U.S. president. I may do it, I may not do it. No one knows, said Trump, seemingly even himself unsure whether he's going to order the U.S. to attack. The risk is obviously immense. If the U.S. does attack and fails to destroy these underground facilities, Iran could respond asymmetrically, for example, by blocking shipping in the Gulf of Hormuz, and that would cause immense disruption to the global economy. On the broader question of what are the objectives of this war now, is it still about destroying the nuclear program, or perhaps has it moved on to replacing the entire regime in Iran? Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has often spoken about this, talking in English to Iranians, trying to emphasize the historical connections between Jewish and Persian people. And with every tactical success on the ground, it's felt more and more that this has become the Israeli objective. Why stop at eliminating just the nuclear program when we can get rid of the whole regime as well? On the other hand, we're really not hearing a whole lot or seeing a whole lot of indications from Iranians that they want to trade in their own despotic bunch of rulers for another group of leaders, possibly even picked by another country. They may not like this regime, a lot of them, but they also don't like seeing Israel bomb their country and kill their people. Chris Brown, CBC News in Jerusalem.
Growing up can be overwhelming for many reasons, but some Canadian teens have to juggle an added stress, looking after an ailing family member. Experts say the number of young caregivers will only grow as Canada's population ages, and a new case study says they need better support. Jennifer Yoon reports.
Najira Rahman has been caring for her mom, who has ALS, since she was 7.
Sometimes I would try to help her with the wheelchair, but it was a lot bigger than me. 1, 2, 3.
Now 17 years old, Rahman says she's only just realizing her responsibilities aren't so ordinary.
Like, oh yeah, this isn't like normal. I am doing things that are like a bit beyond what I should be doing.
About 1.5 million people between the ages of 15 and 30 look after loved ones with long-term health problems. Studies suggest they're at higher risk of mental health challenges, social isolation, and falling behind in school.
Caregivers might not even realize that they are caregivers until there starts to be detrimental effects to their mental health or their well-being.
This 18-year-old has seen it firsthand, caring for his ailing grandfather.
I felt both proud to be looking after someone that I really, really care about, but also I was feeling quite overwhelmed.
The experience inspired him to co-author a recent case study in the journal Canadian Family Physician, urging family doctors to identify young caregivers and help them get support. But others say it's not just up to family doctors.
And I've seen some young carers just kind of break down and cry.
This internal medicine specialist treats complex and chronic diseases. She says seemingly simple tasks, doctors and nurses writing notes for school absences or talking through anxieties about prognosis, can really help.
I think all healthcare providers can provide, can recognize, can play a role and recognize and support young caregivers.
She says Canada could also learn from the UK's approach. Young caregivers' rights are enshrined in the law there, and they're entitled to help like respite care. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News.
Colette Kennedy is back now with more on weather. Colette, that severe thunderstorm watch is still in effect, so talk us through what you're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're seeing with this watch really has to do with the line of storms that will be moving towards us as we get a little bit deeper into these evening hours. It's very strong at this time. It should weaken somewhat, but still there is that risk for some severe storms to make it in across the international border here as we get a little later in the evening. And the ingredients are here. We do have that temperature, 27 degrees, so we know we have the heat. We've had some humidity as well. That provides some buoyancy to the air. Still some humidex values there in the low and mid 30s. I know we had some activity earlier and some heavier downpours at times. We're into a bit of a lull. But it's this next band that I was showing you earlier in the show that really I think the watch is more associated with because of that coming in. All these areas here are in severe thunderstorm warnings. The areas you see there in yellow, those outliers there, there's a tornado warning there, not near our area. That cell will not be affecting us. But as this line moves towards us, we're looking at after 8:30 based on the speed that it's moving at this time. For Windsor, a little later there towards Chatham-Kent, as you saw, it could slow down a little bit, and that would push it a little bit later into the evening. And there are some outliers that may come in first, but the main line you'll kind of know because of the heavy downpours, that risk of damaging winds. Yes, there's that tornadic risk possibility there, but hopefully we'll be seeing this weakening. Also some small hail. Now, as we move forward in time and we get through the night, then we'll have another dry slot and then some rain returns again tomorrow, and that's as we push kind of towards midday. But this is mostly rain shower activity. Now, when you have thunderstorms locally, it's harder to pinpoint exactly where you'll get the heavier amounts of rainfall. So locally, these could be higher, but we're talking in general about a 10 to 20 millimeters as this all moves through before we start to dry out. But the other thing to make note of is certainly going to be the winds. So the winds get strong overnight tonight from the southwest, getting more blustery, over 50 kilometers an hour. And then even tomorrow, especially close to the lakeshore, you're going to find those winds are going to be on the strong side. Lows tonight, 18 to 19 degrees. Eventually, once that temperature begins to fall. And then tomorrow, 24, those midday showers. After that, we should get into some clearing, which would be nice to experience. Friday, we start to warm up, the first official day of summer. It comes late in the evening, but still. And then this heat wave that's going to be upon us, and we are talking about temperatures. This will be oppressive in the 30s and humidex values in the 40s, so I do anticipate some heat warnings, Katerina.
Okay, thanks so much, Colette. Thanks everyone for watching. See you tomorrow.
Good night.